Nobody saw Keith Urban breaking his silence. Not after a quiet divorce ended 19 years of marriage with barely a sound. But then, right in the middle of a live show, something unexpected went down. A quick, emotional crack slipped out, and it felt straight up like a confession. Fans caught it instantly, the shift in his voice, the pause, the look in his eyes the moment someone said her name. It was low-key, but strong enough to have everyone asking, what is Keith Urban really trying to say, and why now? Because this isn't just some breakup tea. It's about heartbreak, guilt, and the kind of truths people spill when they stop pretending everything's fine. According to Reuters, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban officially split after 19 years of marriage, citing irreconcilable differences. That news just confirmed what fans already sensed. Something between them had been fading way before the paperwork was signed. Top of form, bottom of form. Subscribe for more Hollywood truths as they unfold. It was supposed to be just another concert. Flashing lights, screaming fans, Keith Urban doing his thing like always. Then one tiny moment flipped the whole vibe. A fan near the front yelled, "Nicole." For a split second, Keith froze. His smile didn't disappear, but it stiffened, like he was barely holding it together. He looked down, took a breath, and kept singing. But his voice, it wasn't the same. Less smooth, more shaky, more real. Fans online clocked it immediately. They clipped it, slowed it down, replayed every second. Some saw sadness, some saw guilt. A lot of people said it sounded like a man realizing you can't just run from the past forever. As reported by People, Keith Urban's reaction to a fan named Nicole during his live show went viral, with many believing that emotional moment reflected his lingering heartbreak after the split. Because on stage, there's no redo, no edits, no scripted answers. Just raw truth, unfiltered and impossible to hide. This wasn't just a name being shouted. It was a memory hitting him in real time, a wound reopening under bright lights. And in that moment, something shifted, not in the crowd, but inside Keith. But that wasn't the only sign people missed. And what happened next made that moment impossible to brush off. The quietly ticking clock. From the outside, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban looked solid, untouchable even. A Hollywood love story that somehow survived fame, distance, and non-stop cameras. But behind closed doors, the countdown had started way before anyone realized something was wrong. Reports say they'd been living apart for months before the official announcement. Nicole was locked into filming schedules and press runs, while Keith bounced from city to city on tour, endless nights on the road, hotel rooms that never felt like home, and a silence growing wider between them. There were no loud fights. No messy headlines. It was quieter than that. The slow drift that happens when two people are physically close, but emotionally worlds apart. Sources close to the couple said that summer felt off. Keith extended parts of his tour. Nicole spent more time than usual in Australia and Nashville, separately. They showed up together less and less, and when they did, there was a noticeable gap, the kind you only recognize after everything's over. Fans didn't catch on because there was no scandal, no explosive drama, no sudden meltdown, just the slow wear and tear that happens when love is stretched too thin for too long. By the time the divorce papers were filed, the emotional split had already happened. The paperwork was just the final stamp on something they'd been living with for months. But while the world assumed it was mutual, the truth about who let go first, and why, is way more complicated. And it starts to show in what Keith didn't say. Sometimes it's not the words that tell the story, it's the silence after them. For Keith Urban, those silences started screaming louder than any love song. Months before the divorce went public, fans noticed a shift in his interviews. Whenever hosts mentioned Nicole, his tone changed. Answers that used to be warm and easy became short, almost scripted, like he was tiptoeing through memories he wasn't ready to deal with. One interview in late 2024 really set social media off. The host casually dropped Nicole's name while talking about Keith's upcoming album. Instead of his usual grin, Keith paused, let out a tight laugh, and quickly steered the convo back to music. Just like that, the charm snapped back, but the moment stuck. Viewers felt it. It wasn't anger or bitterness. It was discomfort, that heavy feeling when there's way more left unsaid. Insiders later claimed Keith had asked interviewers to avoid personal questions during that press run. He wanted to keep it about the work, or so his team said. But fans weren't buying it. You don't just erase 19 years with a PR move. What he didn't say, the pauses, the nervous looks, the quick subject changes told a clearer story than any official statement ever could. It showed a man battling his emotions, trying to keep it professional, while his personal life quietly fell apart. And as Keith went quieter, Nicole's actions got louder, showing just how hard she tried to hold it all together before it finally broke. Nicole's attempt to hold on. While Keith Urban was pulling back from the spotlight, Nicole Kidman was quietly trying to keep everything from falling apart. Not for the cameras, not for headlines, but for the family they built. Sources close to the situation say Nicole didn't want the marriage to end. She truly believed they could fix what was breaking. Even as Keith's absence started to feel permanent in early summer, she was still showing up solo at events where Keith was once expected, smiling for photos that couldn't fully hide the exhaustion in her eyes. People close to her described someone fighting to stay hopeful while reality kept slipping away. Trusted entertainment sources later said Nicole kept reaching out, calling, texting, checking in between his tour stops, hoping they could talk it through like they always had. But this time, Keith was somewhere else mentally. His world had shifted from family dinners and red carpets to lonely nights on the road and long hours in the studio. Friends say she stayed heartbroken, but graceful. No anger, just confusion. The kind that hits when you realize love alone can't close a growing gap. Even her efforts to protect the children couldn't hide that something had changed between their parents. By the time she agreed to move forward with the separation, it wasn't because she stopped loving him. It was because she finally understood you can't save someone who doesn't want to be found. But what really pushed Keith to that breaking point? The answer lives somewhere between the stage lights and the loneliness of the road. Family life. Keith Urban once said touring was both a blessing and a curse, words that hit different now. To fans, he was pure energy on stage, smiling, confident, alive. But behind that was a man worn down by the very thing that made him famous. Touring meant non-stop flights, endless rehearsals, zero sleep, and living out of suitcases. 4 years, he managed it, juggling career and family. But as the schedule got heavier, that balance cracked. In a 2025 interview, Keith admitted life on the road could be lonely and downright miserable at times. He talked about missing milestones with his daughters and struggling to stay connected while constantly moving. Nicole, meanwhile, had her own intense career, often filming for months away from home. Two people chasing dreams in opposite directions. It was only a matter of time before those paths stopped crossing. Sources claimed that Keith's exhaustion slowly turned into emotional distance. Calls went unanswered. Texts got shorter. His tour crew clocked that he was spending way more time by himself, staying low-key and quiet after shows instead of popping bottles and celebrating. The cheers died down, but the silence after got mad loud. Friends say this is when Keith really started to shift. No big blow-ups, no crazy drama, just a slow, quiet pullback. The road turned into his escape, a spot where he could duck the real life waiting back home. And for Nicole, every scrapped flight, every unread text felt like proof that the man she married was already checked out. But not long after, the world caught a glimpse of that inner chaos, not through interviews or flashy headlines, but through a moment on stage that said more than any confession ever could. A public moment that spoke volumes. There are times when an artist's performance says what words never could. For Keith Urban, that moment hit out of nowhere during a concert that should have been just another regular night on tour. The lights were blazing, the crowd was wild, everything looked business as usual. Then came this sudden pause, one that felt heavier than any lyric he'd ever sung. When a fan yelled, "We love you, Keith. Nicole forever," his reaction told the whole story. The camera caught it clean. A slight smile, a deep breath, a look stuck somewhere between hurt and nostalgia. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. For fans who'd been following his journey, that quick glance showed everything they'd been thinking. The regret, the reflection, maybe even a silent sorry. Within hours, the clip was everywhere. Keith Urban's emotional onstage moment blew up across platforms, with fans breaking down every second. Some said it was staged. Others swore it was a rare, raw crack in the polished performer mask. Whatever it was, it made him human again. For a guy known for keeping his private life locked down, that unscripted second turned into an accidental confession, a way of saying, "I'm still hurting," without ever saying it out loud. But that wasn't the only way Keith's feelings started leaking out. Because not long after, fans noticed his newer songs, even the titles, sounded like coded messages from a man trying to explain himself through music. Lyrics as show themes. A confession hiding in plain sight. After that emotional stage moment, fans started connecting the dots in Keith Urban's recent performances. They noticed a softer edge in his voice, new setlist choices, and lyrics that suddenly hit way more personal. The feel-good love songs were still there, but the delivery was different. It wasn't just music anymore. It felt like emotion bleeding between the lines. Online forums and fan blogs jumped on the shift fast. People started calling Keith's recent shows raw, reflective, stripped down, less about flash and more about feeling. Some even guessed he was working through the end of his marriage through music, using the stage like therapy. But just to be clear, there's no official word that any of his songs were about Nicole. That's all fan interpretation from people who feel something deeper in his performances. Observers also pointed out that Keith seemed more present but quieter, less into the spectacle, and more locked into the message. Every note felt deliberate, like he was replaying memories while still trying to put on a show. Coincidence or confession, the change is impossible to ignore. What once sounded like performance now carries real weight. A man finding calm in melody instead of media statements. And as his shows got more vulnerable, the timing told its own story. Behind the scenes, the legal paperwork was already being wrapped up. A chapter closing quietly. While his music cracked open something new, the legal facts slipped out just as softly. When the divorce papers finally came to light, there were no fireworks, no messy accusations. Just quiet, precise details that told a way deeper story. According to official filings, Nicole Kidman was granted primary residential custody of their two daughters, while both she and Keith agreed to waive spousal support completely. To outsiders, it looked peaceful, respectful, but between those lines was a sense of finality louder than any public statement. There were no fights over money, no dragged-out court drama. Instead, the agreement hinted at something heavier. Closure. The kind that comes from being worn out, not from anger. Both kept control of their own finances, their own homes, their own futures. It was clean, almost too clean. Some fans pointed out it felt like two people who'd emotionally let go long before the papers were signed. As confirmed by People, the divorce documents show that Nicole Kidman will act as the primary residential parent, and both agreed not to trash each other publicly. A clause meant to protect their daughters and keep mutual respect intact. Still, what stood out wasn't just how polite the split was. It was how sharply it contrasted with Keith's emotional vibe over the past few months. On stage, he was wide open. In court, completely detached. It felt like two versions of the same guy. One still hurting, one already gone. And while the filings shut the legal door, they cracked open a new wave of curiosity. Why did it end so calmly, and had someone else already stepped into the picture? Quick reminder, if this story's got you hooked, drop a like and sound off in the comments. Do you think Keith's emotional moments were real, or were they low-key messages meant for Nicole? Rumors started buzzing behind the scenes. No Hollywood breakup ever stays fully private, and Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman's split was no different. Days after the announcement, whispers spread through Nashville and Los Angeles. Quiet talk about a possible new face in Keith's life. Some fans online guessed he'd gotten close to a younger musician from his tour crew, while others brushed it off as nothing but work chemistry. Social media threads and entertainment blogs started lining up timelines, pointing out that Keith's summer tour dates matched periods when Nicole was away for longer stretches. Nothing's been confirmed, and both stayed silent, but the overlap was enough to light the internet on fire. A few unnamed insiders claimed his emotional performances from that time carried hints of guilt or inner conflict. Still, there's no hard proof tying those emotions to any rumored relationship. It's all speculation, but it added another layer to the obsession around their split. Meanwhile, Nicole's friends reportedly encouraged her to ignore the noise. They described her as hurt but classy, choosing not to mess with unproven gossip. Funny enough, her silence only made the rumors louder. Even so, people close to Keith insist the breakup came from years of emotional distance, not a new romance. As the chatter grew, fans started decoding every lyric, every look, every pause, wondering if his so-called confession was about heartbreak, or about someone new. And as those theories kept spinning, Keith's image slowly shifted. No longer just the untouchable country golden boy, but a man stuck between regret and reinvention. For almost 20 years, Keith Urban has been the definition of country music sincerity. A guy known for warmth, loyalty, and that down-to-earth vibe. That clean-cut image helped him dominate charts and win fans worldwide. But after the divorce, everything flipped. Suddenly, every lyric, every move, even his silence on stage got read as signs of emotional pressure. Still, instead of pushing people away, his openness pulled them closer. Fans and critics online have called his recent performances raw, real, and impossible to fake, saying his voice now carries a deeper ache that only real life can give you. Instead of wrecking his career, this vulnerability seems to have breathed new life into it. Proof that people still respect honesty over perfection. That said, the spotlight doesn't play nice. Country music loves stability and family values, and not every fan knows how to handle the fall of a once-beloved power couple. But Keith looks like he's turning heartbreak into fuel, flipping pain into art that hits listeners right in the chest. It's not just about polished production or radio singles anymore. It's about growth. This is Keith Urban reshaping himself, not as the guy from a perfect marriage, but as the artist who found strength through loss. And while his rebirth is happening under stage lights, Nicole Kidman is quietly building her own next chapter, showing that sometimes what comes after love can be just as powerful as the love story itself. As Keith's performances grew heavier with emotion, Nicole's silence became her message. She skipped the cryptic posts and ignored the tabloid noise. Instead, she focused on her kids, her upcoming work, and finding peace away from the chaos. Insiders say Nicole's been regaining her balance, choosing grace over gossip, and rebuilding her life quietly, far from the glare that once followed her everywhere. Still, traces of Keith seem to hang around. At a recent charity event, Nicole was seen wearing a bracelet fans recognized from her early years with Keith. A small, emotional detail that definitely didn't slip by. While doing interviews for her newest movie, she talked about how much forgiveness and freedom matter to her, two words that hit a little too close to home. At the same time, fans think Keith's recent songs and even his setlist choices feel like a low-key apology, more self-reflection than denial. It's like they are both speaking the same vibe without actually saying anything. Him through music, her through silence. In their own ways, they both seem to be chasing closure, while still showing respect for what they once shared. Nicole isn't looking back with bitterness, and Keith isn't acting like it never went down. But just when everyone thought they'd fully moved on, little moments started popping up, hinting that maybe this isn't the final chapter after all. So, is this really the end? Hollywood loves a clean ending, but real life? Yeah, not so much. And for Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman, that feels especially real. Despite everything, the split, the quiet, the rumors, there still seems to be a soft, gentle connection between them. Friends close to the two say they still stay in touch for their daughters, and now they speak with more kindness than they did during those last rough months together. Sometimes heartbreak chills out once the pressure to be perfect is gone. Fans have picked up on that tenderness too. At a recent show, Keith dedicated a song to anyone who ever loved hard, even if it didn't last, and a lot of people took that as a subtle nod to Nicole. Whether he meant it or not, it was one of those moments that reminded everyone that love doesn't always vanish. Sometimes it just changes shape. Nicole, on her side, continues to carry herself with grace and calm. She's composed, grounded, and future-focused, but never brushes it off when Keith's name comes up. It's like they've both chosen to respect what they built instead of obsessing over what they lost. So, is this really the end? Maybe not. Maybe it's just a quieter chapter, one where the affection is still there, just without the marriage label. Because sometimes the realest confessions aren't said in interviews or sung in songs. They live in the silence, long after the spotlight fades. Top of form.